Good morning and a warm welcome to the GreenTech Conference. The next 30 minutes we'll talk about hydrogen. My name is Christopher Hebling. I'm the Director for Hydrogen Technologies at the Fraunhofer Institute for Solar Energy Systems and also speaker for the Fraunhofer Network Hydrogen, which comprises 28 Fraunhofer institutes. Today we have two very distinguished speakers, very much dedicated to hydrogen. It's Fabian Ziegler, who is the managing director of the Shell companies in Germany, responsible for everything which is happening in Germany in each respect for Shell. And also we have Mark Freymüller. He's the CEO of Hyundai Hydrogen Mobility, and we'll hear a lot about the plans of Hyundai, especially in Switzerland as a hub, but also as a hub to roll out to Europe. With this, I would like to hand over to our first speaker. We will have a couple of slides at the beginning, and then we'll see what Shell plans to do in the field of hydrogen, what is the vision behind it. As you all know, Shell is in the deep transformation within the energy transformation from a fossil fuel supplier to a very sustainable company for energy services. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and you just kind of gently described my challenge. So I'm very pleased to be here, and I will talk largely about Germany, but there's also a few other perspectives coming into this. So let me just say a few things about this company Shell. So we're deeply committed to Paris. We think climate change is the world's biggest problem. And one knows us as an oil and gas company, and we are not that. We are not that. In particular, not in Germany, where you have society, you have the political system deeply committed to a climate neutral world, and we are driving a really radical decarbonization of this business. And in this decarbonization, hydrogen plays a really big role. But it's not the only lever we are pulling, which is why I'm so grateful that Mark reminded me today we talk about hydrogen. So hydrogen is one lever of many we are pulling, but it's probably one of the most important in the whole story. Forgive me for having a few slides. It might not have been a good idea, but they might help structure things a little bit. This is sort of greetings from our lawyers. We have many of them. They're nice people, but they always force you to use these things. What this picture paints is, I mean, many people say it's almost too generic, but it kind of describes how a hydrogen system can look like. And it also tells you need to think about creating new systems, and often you need to create systems of systems. So it's a quite complex world, and to keep it relatively simple, it starts with renewable energy, because ultimately you want green hydrogen. You need to transform water into hydrogen. For this, you need electrolysis. There is a lot of logistics in all of this, and in large quantities, you will want to use pipelines. The shipping of hydrogen is not an easy task. To truck it is a more solvable task. So the whole logistics of a hydrogen economy is quite complex. And then the picture also goes into the demand side, and you see lots of potential applications for hydrogen. Transportation, we shall see how important it becomes. Mark will have a lot of great stories to talk to. In passenger cars, it's a tough story. We operate a little joint venture, or we are a partner in a joint venture in this country. We operate 85 hydrogen outlets in this joint venture. We see 400 cars with hydrogen in the market, so not exactly the most attractive business. I'm not talking about trucks. Mark will do this much, much better. And then you see other usages of hydrogen. There's big industry, steel industry, cement industry, etc. That's where we can see a lot of usage of hydrogen. And then you also see the likelihood for it to be kind of commingled with gas that is heating houses. Question mark: will this really come? And then the last bit is also the possibility to use it to create synthetic fuels, for instance, for planes, etc. So it's a complex system, a lot of uncertainty still in it. But it's great that Germany and the European Union, they kind of created their hydrogen strategy, which starts to kind of set the scene for this complex system. And forgive me for blowing a little bit my own trumpet, the Shell trumpet. The picture here, I will only mention a few things. In the middle, you kind of see this generic end-to-end value chain. And at the top, you see that Shell is doing a lot. And you see sort of offshore wind projects. You see these electrolyzers come back. And we operate small ones, and we want to high-grade them, make them bigger. We invest in the bigger ones. And then, if you like, the whole demand side comes in as well. And at the bottom is kind of more, where do we want to go with this? And we want to become a true hydrogen leader. We are in hydrogen since 20 years, and we might have been there a little bit early, but I think now is the time, and we are very keen to play. So hopefully that made some sense.
Well, as we know, there is a lot of excitement in the field of hydrogen at the moment, not only in Germany, but European-wide, the Great Deal, Green Deal, I want to say, and of course on a global scale as well. Everyone thinks about producing hydrogen, transport it, and make use of it in the various sectors. You mentioned the passenger cars, but now we are ramping up in size. That's why Mark is here today. Because the nearest market, obviously, for hydrogen in the transportation sector is trucks, buses in a way as well. So therefore, Hyundai Trucks, by the way, that's the only company which can deliver. You can order trucks with fuel cells, and Mark will tell the whole story behind it.
Yeah. Exactly. Thanks for the introduction. I'm happy to be here. Happy to have the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we're doing in Switzerland to actually decarbonize heavy-duty trucking. Exciting times for us right now because we're in the middle of a market launch. We have the first 10 units already in Switzerland. Next 10 are on the way. The first 10s are upfitted as we speak. We're planning to hand them over to customers. I mean, real customers, not demo customers or whatever, in 2 weeks. And then we ramp it up next year up to 1,000 by 2023 and then 1,600 by 2025. So what I want to say with that is it's not a demo project, right? It's really a market introduction of a fuel cell truck. So it's quite exciting times. But I mean, if you look at the numbers, the volume, and if you're used to volume from passenger car, commercial vehicles is always a little bit lower in volume. But I think it's important to understand that a truck has 50 times the potential of saving CO2 emissions than a passenger car. I mean, that obviously works only if you run with purely green hydrogen. And that's what we secure in Switzerland by not selling the truck, but we're offering a so-called pay-per-use model. That means that the customer is actually paying a certain fee per driven kilometer, and that includes everything. except for the driver, but the rest is included, including the hydrogen supply itself. That gives us, on the one hand, the opportunity to be fully in charge of the quality of the hydrogen, meaning also 100% green hydrogen. So green hydrogen means hydrogen produced with through electrolysis with renewable electricity or renewable energies. And on the other hand, that also solves this chicken-egg dilemma we're usually facing. That means we give our partners the opportunity to build the infrastructure along with the trucks coming in, so that it goes hand in hand and we grow together. So that is really a good opportunity to raise this business case and really, as of now, offer the customer an alternative, an emission-free alternative to his regular diesel truck. Now the question is always, why Switzerland? Well, there are actually three reasons for that. One is the Hydrogen Mobility Association. That's a partnership where people or companies get together from who are operating trucks and also who are operating refueling stations with very strong engagement and very clear commitment to say, yes, we want to pave the way for a hydrogen society here, starting with that, and we have the commitments to not only operate the trucks but also to build up the infrastructure accordingly. That is the engagement part, but obviously it also needs to work financially, and there are two other conditions in Switzerland which make Switzerland special. One is the diesel price. I mean, as you probably know, the diesel price in Switzerland is higher than anywhere else, probably in Europe. That gives us a better opportunity to meet the TCO, the total cost of ownership benchmark on a kilometer. The second thing is the road tax there. So we're talking about a road tax where emission-free vehicles are exempted from, so they do not have to pay that. And we're talking about 60,000 euros roundabout for a regular truck, which the operator has to pay on an annual basis. So if you accumulate that and then reflect that we are just using that in our pay-per-use model, that gives us an opportunity really to offer something viable as of now, which works for the customer also from a financial perspective. Now, the second question we always get is, okay, that works in Switzerland, but is that to a certain degree transferable to other countries, like, for example, Germany, right? And I think, yes, it is, but obviously it needs to work in a way that it's more attractive to the customer to really drive a hydrogen truck than a diesel truck. And there's, in regards to the attractiveness, one attractiveness is the usage. That means I'm talking about city bans and night driving bans and whatsoever, but also from a financial perspective it needs to work. That means probably the government should rethink diesel subsidies, or probably utilizing the subsidies which are on the plate right now. As you know, the hydrogen strategy comes with a significant amount of money. And I think finding the right way, finding the right proper mechanics and to really utilize this in a viable solution which really gives the security to the end customer to be able to operate that vehicle. And not just until the next election, but beyond that, to find the right scheme for that, funding scheme, that is the important part now. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, we're saving 65 tons of CO2 with every single truck. That means once we have those 1,600 trucks in Switzerland, we're talking about a saving of over 100,000 tons of CO2. So I think the time is right now, money is there, truck is there. We need to find the right funding schemes then in other countries, but it's worthwhile really being creative on that, and it's the right thing to do.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mark. For all of you sitting somewhere in the world watching us at the moment, you are very cordially invited to send us your questions to our distinguished speakers. We have the first question. It starts with just a general observation. Building a fossil fuel network, I think that's your part now, was difficult. While I agree that this is new, implementing a new infrastructure for hydrogen, how or which respect can we learn from the existing fossil fuel infrastructure, given the fact that we have a global network, obviously, with all the vessels and trucks and everything and pipelines involved in between? How can we learn and utilize existing fossil fuel networks to speed up hydrogen development?
I think it's a brilliant question and a super relevant one, and there's quite a few aspects you can sort of copy, or you can learn, and you might even modify bits and pieces of oil and gas platform. We kind of believe that hydrogen will become a global economy. This will be a really global market. It might be traded at some point in time. The configuration of it, we would expect to be a bit more decentral than, say, an oil and gas economy is at the moment. I had an interview with a very important politician, and the question was, what can you learn from LNG, liquefied natural gas? And it's interesting. The first LNG terminal was built, I think, in 1964 in Algeria, and Germany is now building LNG terminals. And it just paints the picture of this is a matter of decades. A key aspect is shipping. My company started as a shipping company. So, I mean, Shell is a lot about transformation. We are experimenting with shipping hydrogen, which is tough. You need to convert it, you need to liquefy, you might have to make it ammonium, etc. So it's not an easy business. Pipelines, incredibly important. Europe is full of pipelines. Parts of Europe scale down natural gas production, seize it. So there will be pipeline infrastructure available. You can modify it, you can reuse it, and so on. And I think we can also envisage, say, the gas station side to be leveraged for this. So yeah, I think it's a key question, and it helps to make the whole show economical, which is very key.
Can I add something? Because I mean, you're coming from a global perspective in regards to transportation worldwide of these kind of energies, and also hydrogen in this case. If we really go to the infrastructure, to the refueling station on hand, and you have the experience in Germany, right? I think this is where the whole where the trucks are really are coming into that game, because they offer a good opportunity to make it really a viable business case for an operator of a refueling station. With just a few trucks. I mean, if you compare, like I said earlier, right, the emission part is also true for the consumption. And with a higher consumption of a truck, it makes it much easier for an HRS, for a hydrogen refueling station, to have a viable business case. I mean, you need either 700 vehicles, and you mentioned we have, what, 400 or 500 in Germany right now. I mean, passenger cars.
One is mine.
Or you do that with 15 trucks. And if you do it with 15 trucks, it's kind of easy to arrange that around that refueling station and to make sure that they refuel at this one refueling station. So by building up the infrastructure with trucks, with creating a high demand, then we pave the way basically for the passenger car infrastructure as well, and really help to shift to a hydrogen society.
Right. The interesting aspect of our time at the moment is, I think, that we have a global move. You mentioned Paris towards renewable energies. All the nations which signed the treaty are committed to reduce the fossil amount of energy carriers. And on the other hand, we see also local initiatives, as you said, because with hydrogen it can be produced on site out of water with water energy. So this is an interesting time of a convergence of the various worlds in a way. In terms of numbers, since I know in northern Germany they want to buy trucks. Just another information, maybe in Germany we have 230,000 trucks of 23 tons and above. It's a small numbers compared to all vehicles on the road, but they account for 50% of the CO2 emissions for for the trucks and deliveries of all vehicles. So therefore, to tackle exactly this market, that's wonderful. In terms of sizing and ramping up, I hear big numbers from German customers. You mentioned 10 are on its way. I mean, how is the hockey stick for Hyundai? When do you want to deliver which numbers?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, in Switzerland, the numbers are open and clear because we have a very distinctive business case there already, where we said in 2023 we want to have 1,000 vehicles in customer operation, and in 25 1,600. Now, if we talk about other countries, it depends on the structure, on the business case, on the subsidies, on the price of the hydrogen, on the existing or non-existing infrastructure. Where is the hydrogen produced and where is the consumer, where is the infrastructure? If that all fits together, and I think we can do that, I think it would be easily doable to have another 1,000 within the next 2 or 3 years within Germany. But I mean, the customer demand is there. I'm really not concerned about not finding the customers who would like to switch to emission-free vehicles. This is not the problem. I think the problem is really to close the TCO gap with the special circumstances we have in Switzerland. We're talking about a TCO gap of probably 85 cents per kilometer in Germany, and we need to find a solution for that. Once we have a solution for that, and as I said before, there is funding available. I mean, the German government, we just had a discussion with them early this week with Mr. Scheuer. They have to spend 1 billion until 2023. Now I think we just have to give them some ideas how to do that, and really build up a sustainable business. I think it's important for the subsidies when they are spent, that once they are gone, that business is still developed in a way that it can sustainably exist without the funding over the years. And that's what we need the plan for. So I don't want to give you thousands of high volume numbers just to have some high volume out there. I think we go from business case to business case, and really from tangible customer orders to customer orders, so to say. Once we have that, I'll let you know.
If I may just add one little piece of insight I gained yesterday. I was sitting next to a prominent German truck manufacturer in a discussion, and they were asked how do they see the world in 2035, and his prediction was by that time in German trucking you have 50% on hydrogen, and I think these people know what they talk about, and they deeply investing. It just paints this is for real, and it's really big business.
As much as I would love to see that, the same people said already in 5 years hydrogen will be a standard propulsion system on passenger cars, and they did that in the 90s, right? So I'm always struggling with those 10 years and more predictions of what the market will look like. But I can see the point where you're coming from there.
Yeah, but the situation is very different now due to the fact that now we have a penalty system, and they're all the truck manufacturer, they're sweating like crazy at the moment because from 25 on they have to pay billions on penalties if they miss the CO2 targets given by the European Commission. And they said in a private discussion that if they miss the CO2 targets in 2030 by 5% only, they will be out of business. They could only survive if they only ship their trucks out of Europe, which is not the idea of Daimler Trucks, for example, or MAN or so on. So therefore, the pressure is on, and this is exactly the difference at the moment, that the standards given by the European Commission, they are totally different at the moment. Maybe let's switch gears back to your business model. Shell, of course, is heavily involved in refineries, for example, the biggest refinery in Wesseling, refinery Rhineland, is about to install the biggest electrolyzer in Germany, 10 megawatt. You should know that a refinery of that size needs 180,000 tons of hydrogen per year, and the hydrogen as such, which is used now, has a CO2 footprint already because it stems out of natural gas. So in order to reduce the footprint of the hydrogen just needed for a refinery, which again produces fuel, which we need every day. So what is the vision behind it? Will you go on 100% renewable hydrogen in a refinery, which is a different business case as compared to hydrogen as a fuel for trucks and passenger cars?
Thanks for this question. I will not have the total answer to this particular question. Just to be clear, our refinery in Rhineland consists of two pieces, Wesseling and Gordorf. It is indeed Germany's biggest refinery. We are transforming this whole refinery, which is work in progress. We have a sort of public event where we will say more about our transformation of our German business on the 29th of September. So we will say much more about this then. The interesting piece is this PEM electrolyzer. We will take in service in probably 3 months' time. It will make green hydrogen less than 1% of what we need. Huh? And it just shows you the quantities, and it's a game of quantities. Huh? Energy is a game of quantities, and you need to think really, really big. As part of the transformation of this refinery, many new sort of components of a plant will come. We already think about a supersized version of this particular electrolyzer, and there is kind of the scaling up in these electrolyzers. Huh? You have many of the smaller electrolyzers operative already. The 10 megawatt class, ours is one of the first now. And the same will happen with the 100 megawatts, and then you need to go gigawatt. So absolutely, huh? But we also need to then have certainty that we know the supply chain for it, huh? Which is why I'm probably a little bit reserved for now. But this refinery is subject to a quite interesting transformation program.
Yeah, if we talk about infrastructure, well, hydrogen is a base molecule, as we all know, but if we talk about international collaborations and transport schemes, NEOM, for example, that's a region in Saudi Arabia, they ramp up also to the gigawatt range, as you say. But the question is, transportation molecule, will it be hydrogen, will it be carbon-based, which is methanol, OME, DME, longer-chained hydrocarbons, or is it ammonia? Ammonia is also a good fuels, but more for the shipping area. Since you, as a leading company also in this business, what's your vision on the renewable molecule of the future, if there is one?
Well, if you ask me, sort of, what do we predict is the way by which hydrogen will be shipped, I'm not an expert. Huh? I'm not an expert. We are part of a project that investigates how to transport green hydrogen from Australia to Japan. And there are various alternatives. It's not easy. Huh? What we predict will happen is that indeed, coming back to the pipeline system, and we talked about Rhineland, which is in the Ruhrgebiet. The Ruhrgebiet is very connected to Rotterdam. Rotterdam is at the moment kind of the oil harbor in Europe. Rotterdam will want to become a hydrogen hub. And of course, there's all sorts of pipelines between Rotterdam and, say, Ruhrgebiet. And that's sort of, so this will be more gaseous hydrogen, I would predict. Yeah. But I'm not an expert in hydrogen logistics. Right. Huh?
Talking about standards, Hyundai decided for the 350 bar standards, pressurized hydrogen. Will it always be like that, or do you have a second opinion in terms of liquefied hydrogen or cryo-cooled, which is not liquefied but deep cold but pressurized. So what's the long-term vision for long drive trucks?
I think at the end of the day, it needs to be a financially viable business case, right? So the customer pays the whole thing at the end, setting some subsidies aside. By that, I don't see a big future for liquefied hydrogen as of now. Even 700 bar is technically just not possible as of now. So that's why we said if we want to start now, we need to do that with 350 bar, because it's the best combination from a cost perspective, from a refueling time as well, standards in place. So at the end of the day, I don't know what it will look like in 10 years. As of now, 350 bar is the only possibility to get started. Just looking at the truck and say I need the range, so it's going to be liquid. I think that's just short-sighted. We really have to have a holistic approach and a holistic view on the whole business case.
Thank you very much. Yeah, with this, I'm afraid our time is over already. So, of course, there are many open questions, not from the audience. So, but it's wonderful to have you here. I hope you stay till tomorrow night. Fabian and Mark, it was great to have you, and thank you very much for all of you somewhere in the world watching us. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.